My friend, congratulations. You are now the proud owner of a self-storage facility. You have closed the deal. The wire has hit, documents are signed, the ink is dry, keys are yours. Now what? Everything we have been working to up until this point has led you to this moment. Now you are, again, a proud owner of a self-storage facility. And there's a saying in the self-storage space amongst operators and investors is that when you buy your first, you're halfway to 10. You are going to have gained so much confidence just by getting to this point, and you have now done something that probably 99% or more than that of people will never do or have never done, okay? So now what? That begs the question. In the last video, we talked about how you can close like a professional. Now it's time that you start to learn how to own and operate like one. So this is where you're gonna shift from being a buyer to actually being a business owner, because look, the real work begins and the real wealth is starting to get transferred after closing, right? The first 90 days, oftentimes I tell our Storage Wins coaching clients, the first 90 days can feel a little bit hectic and chaotic. There's a lot of moving parts, there's different things, it's all fresh and new, and it can be a little nerve-wracking at first, but the one thing I can promise you is that after 90 days, most of the time, things really start to slow down and settle in. Storage is a very boring business. There's not a lot of emergencies. So the first 60, 90 days, it can feel like there's a lot of moving parts, but every single storage winner that I have coached and worked with, in my experience, friends that are operators, will tell you the same thing. First 30, 60 days, especially on your first deal, there's a lot of moving parts, but then it really slows down and settles in, especially once you set up your systems and you're working with your boots on the ground, if you happen to have chosen to work with a third-party management company. But once you put the structure in place, everything really just starts to slow down and flow, all right? Now, here's the thing. By the end of this video, you're gonna have a clear 30, 60, and 90-day roadmap to stability, to systemization, and to start generating cash flow as quickly as possible. Now, look, you may have bought a facility that's 0% occupancy, and that might take you 12 to 18 months before you're able to stabilize it, maybe even a little bit longer. You may have bought a facility that's highly stabilized, but is not operationally efficient. I don't know what type of asset you bought, and so it's going to depend on how quickly you can start generating cash flow. There's a lot of different variables there, but regardless of what you've bought, the facility fast start, this particular module is going to give you everything you need in terms of how to think like an operator, how to transition, and then what does the first 30, 60, 90 days of being a self-storage owner operator look like for you? So now, one thing that I didn't cover in the last video, but I want to dive into it a little bit deeper here. And this is something that's done even before you close, ideally, all right? Before day one, you really need to have thought through, and really during the due diligence period, you need to have thought through how do you want to manage this facility? And there's a couple different paths, or I should say pretty common paths. You can self-manage, and that basically means that you're gonna hire a local boots on the ground person, somebody that's gonna be there on a week in, week out basis. Usually they'll go to the facility once or twice a week. As an aside, in the amplifier training session, I have a dedicated video about finding and hiring a boots on the ground person and everything you're gonna need to know there. Don't skip ahead, but I just wanted to go ahead and plant that seed. But regardless of whatever path you choose, you're gonna have a boots on the ground team member. And you are going to manage that boots on the ground team member. You're gonna have a management software like Easy Storage Solutions or StoreEdge or Cubby are pretty common ones. You may decide to get a call center, all right? Now, this is going to depend on the size of the facility. If you bought a facility with a couple hundred units, you may wanna go with a call center. If you bought a facility with 50, 60, 70 units, you may want to just take those calls yourself. I think the benefit to that is that you're going to learn the business quickly. You're going to establish a relationship with the customers. You're going to just get to understand the ins and outs better. And on a small facility, you're likely not going to be receiving that many phone calls. So you need to decide, are you going to self-manage, which basically means you are managing the boots on the ground team member, or are you going to go with a third-party management company, meaning that you hire a professional management company that's going to run the daily operations, okay? That is the path that I have chosen. Now, part of the reason I've done that is based on a couple different factors. Number one, I bought facilities large enough where the revenue can support a third-party management company. What happens is if you end up buying a small facility, let's say you buy a 8,000 or a 10,000 square foot facility, in most cases, that facility is not going to generate enough revenue to justify the expense of a third-party management company. And so you kind of need to self-manage in that case. But if you buy, let's say, a 30 or 40,000 square foot facility that the revenue can justify a third-party management company, then you get to make that call. Both can work, but clarity is everything. And I think it's important that you think through as you're going under contract, as you're going through due diligence, what's the best way to manage this facility? Am I going to self-manage? Am I going to third-party manage? Both can work. Again, I have friends that self-manage and they will hire the staff and then management is now in-house. I can tell you that if you have an appetite for that and you have a knack for that, that can mean even better margins. For me, because owning and operating self-storage isn't my only business and I have other things and other interests, I've always chosen to look for larger facilities and and go with third-party management company. Okay, so either way, you just have to figure out what works for you. Now, a couple different things I will mention before we transition into the facility fast start here. If you are using a third-party manager, it's super important that you get clear before you hire them to talk about their scope of work. What are they responsible for? What are you going to be responsible for? Usually, in my experience, they are going to be responsible for finding, hiring, and training the boots on the ground team member. They oftentimes have an in-house call center that they use. They might even offer bookkeeping services. Now, bookkeeping is something I've always chosen to hire my own bookkeeper. Super, super important. The third-party management company I work with, for an additional fee, they can handle the books. But again, I have always wanted to work with my own bookkeeper. And, I have coaching clients that manage their own books because they're familiar with QuickBooks and they have a system and it really doesn't take them that much time. I have always worked with a bookkeeper, so this particular person manages the books for my different storage facilities. And a good keeper, you're going to pay anywhere between, I would say, $75 on the low end to it could be $300, depending on the size of the facility, the complexity, the various things that you want to track on the P&L and on the balance sheet, maybe even a cash flow statement. So you just have to kind of think through some of these things, but really important that if you're interviewing and going to hire a third-party management company, you're crystal clear on what they do and what they don't do. All right. Super, super important. Communication is key. Just because you hire a third-party management company, do not abdicate the responsibility. They still need to be managed. So with our third-party management company, we meet bi-weekly and we review in depth the management summary report, where we're at with revenue, where we're at with move-ins and move-outs, where occupancy is at, and we're tracking things month over month, year over year. Do we have any unrentable units? And if so, why? What is the plan for that? How are we looking from a customer service perspective? We also look at revenue management, okay? And rates, are rates aligned with the market? Are we the market leader? Do we need to push? Do we need to scale back? Do we need to make any adjustments? Right? Those consistent meetings keep you connected, keep you confident. And remember, I always say this, you want to inspect what you expect. So do not make the mistake of hiring a third-party management company and turning a blind eye, expecting that they're doing everything that they're supposed to be doing. The squeaky wheel gets the grease, so you still need to have a close eye, be looking at the reports, be in communication. If things are not moving to your expectations, and that's something that you're going to talk to them up front before you hire them, is expectations. Ideally, you can even ask for hey, could you put me in contact with one or two of your customers? Do some research on the company, make sure that they have experience, make sure that they're not growing too fast and that you just become another client, because operations can make or break the deal. All right. Now, let's start to transition, and I want to talk about the mindset here for these 90 days of onboarding. As with most things, it's probably not going to surprise you, but you want an attitude of progress, not perfection. All right. You want to create structure, start building momentum. You want to have a checklist that you complete, which is going to build more clarity, more confidence. 30,000 foot view. Let me just kind of give you the roadmap here. The first 30 days, to me, the focus needs to be about stabilization and communication. All right. The outcome of this is just going to mean smoother transition. So you want to stabilize, you want to communicate. Days 31 through 60, and by the way, don't worry because I'm going to get deeper into each one of these phases, but days 31 through 60 is about systemization and optimization. That's going to give you more efficiency. And then days 61 through 90 is about monetizing, maximizing profit and control. And like, let's be honest, like that's why we're in the storage business. Obviously, we want to make more money. We want to generate cash flow. We want to build wealth. And we want to be able to do this on our timeline, which is going to give us freedom to do the things that are important to us, the things that fill us up. That's why most people, I think, get involved in the self-storage business. So let's now start to focus in on phase one. And again, your goal here is clarity and connection. It's all about communication. Communication with tenants, with your team, with any vendors, if you're doing any CAPEX work. So think of like part one in phase one. Think of this as like the tenant communication blitz. All right. You want to send a friendly letter the day of closing, ideally, a change of ownership letter. Right. And this is super friendly, letting them know that the facility is under new management. You've recently purchased a facility. You're excited about everything you're going to be doing to the facility, how they can communicate with you from a customer service perspective, your phone number, the email, the website. Now, I think it's super important that you or someone on your team call and or text every single tenant personally and share with them, like set the expectations. How are payments going to be handled moving forward? Where they can reach you? What's changing? Make sure that it's benefit driven to them. Focus on the benefits, the things that you're going to be upgrading. And that could be lighting. That could be an automated gate. That could be better communication, more intentionality around customer service, improved security. There's a lot of things that you can communicate to them. Now, this should go without saying, but don't communicate anything to them that you're not planning on doing. You do not want to overpromise and underdeliver. I'd rather you overpromise and overdeliver, but if anything, underpromise, overdeliver. All right. Introduce yourself as the manager, not the owner. That is a pro tip right there, because if you're the owner, guess who's going to be getting contacted a bunch? Now you've set yourself as like the end all be all, and you can't play the good cop, bad cop type of thing. So you want to be the manager, not the owner in their eyes. It's super important that they understand that in terms of payment rules, under no circumstance am I suggesting or recommending that you accept cash. It just creates more liability. It's an issue, especially if you're running these facilities remotely. Like you might live in one part of the country and the facility is hundreds of miles away. Even if it was in your backyard, I would tell you not to accept cash. To me, it just opens the door for liability, theft, confusion, more accounting. Do not accept cash. Now, when I bought my first facility, I decided I was going to accept checks, and it just became a nightmare. Like people would send in their checks at the end of the month, but it wouldn't arrive at my mailbox until like the third or the fourth, which meant that to us, they were late. Because if the payment's not in on the first of the month, if it's the second and we haven't received it, they're late, they're getting assessed a fee. And it just became more of a bookkeeping nightmare. We had to travel to the mailbox to get the checks. So what I just decided to do is every time I close a facility, I give them a 60-day grace period when it comes to checks, and that they understand that on day 61, we are no longer accepting checks. And we move everybody over to ACH or credit card payment. All right. I would offer, especially early on, offer them a 60-day grace period for when it comes to late fees. You want to build goodwill. Like, I think it's important you set the boundaries and the expectations, but you don't go in there with like your sergeant, you're just like, it's like this, and it's like, you're so rigid. You don't want people leaving on you, right? You want to make sure that you're taking care of them. You want to make sure that they feel seen, heard, loved, cared on. These are your customers. They're going to make sure that the facility continues to run, that you're profitable, take care of your people. Think about how you would want to be treated, right? Golden rule of life. Now, part 2 or B of phase 1, think about the systems and the data. It's not uncommon to take over a facility and you're going to see that the customer information or the tenant information is incorrect, where you are missing a number on the phone number, or you're missing an email, or you don't have the proper address. So when you contact the customers, verify all their contact information. Mobile number, if they have a home number, email, address. You want to reconcile everything to the rent roll, to what's physically occupied, because when you walk the facility, oftentimes what you see in reality on site isn't going to match what's on the rent roll. And so the first 30 days, you're going to probably have to reconcile that. you want to make sure that export any historical reports before the seller's access to their software, if they have it, ends, and you have that data. That can be super, super handy for you in the future. If you go to refinance the facility or if you go to sell the facility, you will be asked for that data. It's always helpful if you have it on hand. You want to look at which units are, there's a big difference between physical occupancy and economic occupancy. Physical occupancy is you have a customer who has their belongings in a unit, but they might not be paying. They may or may not be paying. Economic occupancy is, let's say a facility could generate $100,000 in revenue, but it was only generating $50,000 in revenue. Well, now you have a 50% economic occupancy, okay? 100% of those units might actually have stuff in it, which means it's 100% physically occupied. But if you're only collecting half of what you could collect, it's 50% economic occupancy. So you have to make sure that when you're doing this reconciliation, you're checking, is this a paying customer? If not, what is the plan? Do we need to start the auction process on that? You need to secure vacant units. Make sure that you have a particular tag on them. If a customer's not paying, make sure that you overlock them with a Da Vinci lock or whatever system you might be using. You would have gotten, hopefully, a certified rent roll signed at closing from the previous owner. So those are some of the things you want to do, and you want to just make sure that what's on site in reality matches your online system. All right. Part 3 or C of phase 1 is the property walkthrough and the CAPEX triage. And I kind of just touched on it, but we want to walk, if you have multiple buildings, you likely will, want to walk every building and inspect every unit. Now, if a customer has stuff in there, super important. I'm not an attorney. I can't give you any legal or financial advice, but I never walk into a unit. Okay, I can open a door and look at it from the outside. I wouldn't walk into the unit. Don't open yourself up to that type of stuff. You can take photos and videos of vacant units, or if a customer's not paying, because then you can auction them off. And there's Locker Fox, there's storageauctions.com. Like, all our auctions take place online. And then your boots on the ground is going to be the one to take pictures so that you can put those online, get those units auctioned once you follow whatever the lien laws are for that particular state. Okay, that's super important. That's something we talked about in the previous video, is understanding the lien laws in that state. If you're doing any type of CAPEX work or repairs, CAPEX is capital expenditures. You might meet with the different vendors, the roofer, the electrician, the handyman. Like, make sure you have a game plan for that process and create a list. I would encourage you to create what's a must do now list. Like, what absolutely has to be done now because it's impacting our ability to create and generate revenue, versus it's a nice to have or it's a nice to do in the future. Super important. If you have a door, as an example, that doesn't open, well, now you can't rent that unit. That's a must fix now. Let's say you're 10% occupancy, right? You have 90% vacancy. Maybe you don't have to fix that because you have so many other open units. So you have to use a little bit of judgment here. But if, generally speaking, I like to get fixed the things that need to get fixed because it's preventing me from generating revenue, versus something that it'd be a nice to have, but it's not going to prevent us from renting out a unit and generating revenue. Hopefully that makes sense. When it comes to the boots on the ground team member, obviously when you purchase the facility and you're on site with them, the first 2, 3, 4 days, however long you're on site, you want to be meeting with them. You want to train them. You want to make sure that the site map, that they understand the site map and where all the units are, the size of the units. You do that by walking the facility together. Set expectations. I like to provide them with a starter kit, the things that they're going to need: Da Vinci locks, pest spray or any type of pest control, signage, tools. I remember when I bought my first facility, we went to Home Depot and bought a leaf blower because there was a bunch of leaves and stuff on. So provide them with the tools and resources that they'll need. Their role is just the upkeep of the property, and then making sure that they do lock audits, unit cleanouts, they take pictures for the auctions. I don't like them communicating with customers. Their role is not customer service. That's why I have either a call center, a third-party management company, but I don't want my boots on the ground really interacting and handling customer service. I want them doing the on-site upkeep and operations. All right. Especially when you hire somebody, I think it's important that you do a daily touch point call. That could be a 10 to 15 minute call. Bare minimum, you should be meeting with them once a week. I think that's really, really important. How did it go the day before? You're reviewing any challenges, updates, wins. Make sure that they have an action plan moving forward. Equip them to be able to do their job successfully. That basically goes with any role that you hire, but make sure that the lines of communication are super, super open. If you are working with a third-party management company, just make sure that there's a frequent touch point early on. Expectations are being set and that they also have what they need from you to be able to do their job. And a really good management company is going to appreciate that. They're going to want to communicate with you early on in the process because they want to keep and retain your business. They want you as a happy customer. So super important that both of you are aligned there. And don't forget, in the Amplifier training session, we have a video all about the boots on the ground team member. So once you get through module 5, then you can check that out when the time is right. The last couple ones that I want to mention here as far as phase 1, marketing and visibility. Yes, you want this to start now. Don't wait until later on in the process, but you want to make sure that you have claimed and verified your Google My Business listing. All right, your Google business profile. If you haven't taken professional photos, take professional photos. Get those uploaded to your Google My Business profile, to your website, online. Update your hours of operations. Make sure that you have really good signage that says new ownership, that you have a clear phone number, that it just looks professional. You want to make sure that your website is live. It's connected to your management software, to your merchant account, that people have the ability to go online and rent units. You want to make sure that your phone number is on there. You'd be surprised. I have been to websites that don't have a phone number and a way to contact them. It's wild to me. Or that they have a sign that just has the facility name, but no phone number. Like, what good does that do somebody driving by? So make sure that this sounds basic, but you would be surprised how many miss the mark when it comes to this type of stuff. On our website, I like to show like, hey, we're located right by the Arby's or by the Dollar General, and here's how you get here from the north, from the south, from the east, from the west. If you're going to be working with Sparefoot, then you want to make sure that Sparefoot has your pictures and your online description and all that kind of stuff. All right. Now, the last part here is something that I like to do is just quality control. I want to verify all the utilities are now in our name, with our company name, I should say, with our contact information. You want to confirm that merchant deposits are hitting your account. And I like to do that by testing with like a 1-cent deposit. So test everything as if you were a customer. Go to your own website, click the Rent Now button and rent one of your units that, let's say you have a lot of one particular unit type and size available. Like let's say you have 20 5x5s available, rent one of your 5x5s. Don't rent like the last 10x15 that you have as an example. Rent it, go through the process and ask yourself, hey, if I was going to be a customer of this facility, do I find this painless and easy to manage and to rent? Call the number. If you're working with a call center, call them and say, hey, how long does it take? How many rings? Did they pick up right away? Were they courteous? Were they helpful? Make sure, one of the things I like my assistant to do is on a weekly basis, she'll go online and she'll make sure our website is working. She'll call the phone number on Google. She'll call the phone number on our website, make sure that's working. Make sure our call center answers the phone quickly. So it's a saying, I'm forgetting, I don't want to butcher it, but like an ounce of prevention is worth a pound of flesh or something like that. These are little things that can take 2 to 3 minutes that done once a week can prevent you from not being able to rent a unit and generate revenue. Don't ever assume that things are working as they should. Again, inspect what you expect. Super, super important. Now, when it comes to, let's now transition to phase 2. Phase 2 is now you've gotten through your first month of ownership as a storage operator, and now you're moving into days 31 through 60. Hopefully you're in the process of starting to get things, communication is on track. You're starting to get things more stabilized, dialed in. Now we got to tighten the systems. When it comes to the finances and the bookkeeping, is you want to make sure that you're reconciling every single month. Do not make the mistake of what a lot of business owners make, is that they wait till the end of the year to try to do all the books. That is not the way to run, manage, and operate a business. And self-storage is no different. So every single month, our books are reconciled. We're confirming that our deposits from our merchant account are matching the reports. We want to make sure that we try to get as many tenants as possible over to auto pay. auto pay via ACH or credit card. And then you or your bookkeeper, they're gonna close out the books every single month. In fact, I work with a bookkeeper. If you wanna just reach out to us and I can put you in contact with our bookkeeper, but I have a monthly 1-hour meeting with him where we review the P&L, the profit and loss statement, we review the balance sheet. We just make sure that everything is up to date. And that gives me, as an owner operator, that gives me a certain level of peace of mind that at any given point, like I know where the numbers are at, I know where we're at with our facility, I have my finger on the pulse and things are just dialed in. You want a certain cadence and rhythm when it comes to if you're working with any particular vendors. When I typically buy a facility, if it doesn't have cameras, I like to have cameras installed. And so that's an example of a vendor that I'm in contact with. Or if you're adding an automated gate, or if you're improving lighting, things of that nature. So lock in any type of recurring schedules. Maybe you have somebody who's mowing the lawn or doing some type of maintenance every 2 weeks or every month. It could be pest control on a monthly basis. It could be the gate service, whatever it might be. Just make sure that you have the contact information. I like to use just a simple Google spreadsheet that myself and my team have access to. Boots on the ground has access to them. They know the contact information for people that they may need to communicate with. And that we're reviewing, okay, these are the CAPEX projects that we're working on right now, and here's what we're gonna be tackling in the future. Make sure that when it comes to reviewing your KPIs, your key performance indicators, if you're working with a software like Easy Storage Solutions or Storage, then once a week, I always track where are we at from a revenue perspective, where are we at from an occupancy perspective, delinquencies, okay, super important, move-ins and move-outs. Those are some of the things that I'm looking at, and I like to update and look at that weekly because as with anything, what you track and measure expands and grows. So there are some that will tell you, hey, looking at your KPIs once a month is okay. I like to look at our reports on a weekly basis. It helps me stay ahead of things. If there's an issue, I like to communicate with the third-party management company in advance. And I'm not waiting until the month has ended and closed to then try to address certain challenges or issues. All right. And I think the last part of phase 2 is I'm a relationships guy. If you've been following along in this cash flow maps training, then you know that about me already. Relationships are everything. And I like to make sure that I have relationships with the community, the surrounding area, 3-5 mile radius, that I know the different businesses out there. I introduce myself as a new business owner to the area. Oftentimes, if you build these meaningful relationships, they can become an extra set of eyes on your property. They can even send you referrals. Make sure that you let them know that you do offer a referral program. I would definitely recommend that. I even like to build relationships with my competitors. In fact, at our Florida facility, that's what I did with one of our closest competitors. He's usually pretty full, and every now and then he'll send us referrals. When they can't, they just don't have any availability, and then we give them a small fee in exchange for that, and we just maintain a relationship. So it's a win-win-win all the way around. Now, phase 3 is things by now, days 61 through 90, depending on the facility and where you're at from a value add strategy perspective, where you're at from an occupancy perspective, a CAPEX perspective, like depending on all those variables, things are starting to settle down and normalize. It's not as Oftentimes I experience it's not as chaotic or hectic, if that's even the word to use. That's probably an over dramatization, if that's the word to use. But things just slow down and settle in, and the facility is starting to run smoother, hopefully. And this is about, for me, revenue optimization. You want to be auditing your rent roll. You want to make sure that you're checking again the competition and where rates are relative to the market. Where are your rates relative to the competitors? I always encourage our Storage Wins coaching clients you want to put pressure on the market rates. You don't want to be the cheapest. You don't want to be in the middle. You want to be towards the top, and you want to be pushing the rates. Sometimes you might find yourself that you're in a very unsophisticated market, meaning the operators in the area, they set it and forget it. These are the rates, and they've been the rates like that for years. That's where you can thrive and win, and you don't want to be that person. All right, so make sure that you're evaluating. That's one of the things I like about my third-party management company is that every month we're doing revenue rate management. Do we need to be increasing a little bit? Do we need to stay the same? Maybe it makes sense if I have a lot of units of a particular type and size, maybe I need to drop to get occupancy up to start generating more revenue. And then in 6 to 9 months, I can think about bumping the rates depending on where they're at. All right. You might even want to think about introducing certain upsells. Now, from day one, we always do an admin fee. We do late fees. We do, if we have to clean out, we do a clean out fee, auction fee. So there's different profit centers in the storage business, and all that trickles down to the bottom line, which I love. You definitely want to have tenant protection or some type of insurance program where you're working with a company. They provide the service and you participate in the revenue with them. Oftentimes we get 70% of that. So like for our tenant protection, our customers pay $14 a month. We get 70% of that revenue and we don't even have to service it, which is awesome. Now, when it comes to reviews and reputations, super, super important that you're constantly doing a steady push for 5-star Google reviews. Google reviews are very, very important in any business, especially a storage business. I personally work with a service that's been a game changer for us, and they have an algorithm where they're reaching out to our customers to incentivize them to give us reviews. It's a legit service. We don't get fake reviews. I would never recommend that. Do not do that. Do not add fake reviews from non-customers. If you're going to ask friends and family for reviews, make sure that they're not lying and saying, hey, I rent storage here, but saying, hey, this is more of a character review. I know the ownership and I know they care. Things like that I think are okay. But really, the company that I work with, highly recommend. It's relatively inexpensive. There should be a link somewhere on here if you want to fill out a quick form that'll automatically go to them. I do have an affiliate relationship with them, so full disclosure, where I get a little bit of money if you decide to work with them. But I've been working with them for years. I like them. They're good. My Florida facility went from, I think, 6 or 7 reviews to I think we have like over 60 now or over 70. In like a year and a half. And so every single month we just get a new trickle of 5-star reviews from our existing customer base, and I love it. CAPEX execution, you want to make sure that you have an outline or you have a checklist of the things that you want to work on and when you want to work on them. What's deferred maintenance that needs to be focused on now? I like to make sure I focus on safety and curb appeal. Curb appeal is super, super important. You want to make sure you capture before and after photos for marketing and like if you're going to work with a bank so that they can see, hey, look at all the work we've done here. Look at all the money we've put into the facility. I did that with my first facility where we took before pictures, before closing, and then after, where we had the brand new automated gate, where we painted some doors, where we added new security and lighting, a new sign. Like, that can be a big, big difference. And it shows a bank, it shows a lender, it shows a potential partner, a potential future buyer, all the work you've done, the value you've created in the facility. And then the last part here is the reporting and the rhythm. You want to make sure, like I mentioned, you're reviewing KPIs every single week, management summary reports, occupancy reports, things of that nature. You can conduct a 90-day review where you're looking at over the last 90 days, are we trending up when it comes to occupancy, when it comes to collections, when it comes to, are things moving in the right direction, or where do we need to tweak, modify, or recalibrate on certain things? And look, celebrate the wins. Like, this is the hard part. Once you get through these first 90 days, it's about making sure you follow through on your plan, your business plan, you're executing, but things really slow down. All right. And then now that you have this confidence and momentum, you can go to find your next facility. Note any lessons learned, and you're just going to continue to build, get wiser, get better, get stronger, start to systematize what's maybe not working or where you're weak. And I think in putting a bow on this particular video, I want to share with you some common pitfalls that you should avoid. Poor tenant communication or not communicating with your tenants. If 30 days in, a customer doesn't even know that you have just acquired this facility, or they don't know what's new or different, that's on you. Okay, so poor tenant communication, forgetting to do quality control checks, and just like I mentioned, testing your website, the phone number, not offering different services like tenant protection or some type of insurance where you can participate in that revenue, having no boots on the ground ready when you close on the facility and then having to scramble and find one, over improving, putting too much money into the facility that doesn't necessarily have an impact on the revenue and the occupancy. I think that's a mistake. And then also just completely ignoring the finances, not having a bookkeeper or a bookkeeping process and system, not reconciling certain things. That is where things start to go south. You got to have two hands on the wheel. You got to have your arms around this. This is your business. Make sure that you treat it like a business. Make sure you take care of your customers. Focus on customer service, over communicate with those people involved, and you're going to be in good shape overall. All right. So look, this is your first 90 days. It can feel like a bit of a whirlwind, and that's okay. Once your systems and people are in place, everything starts to slow down and you're going to be rocking and rolling. But the goal is not to do everything yourself, right? Don't feel like you need to take this on yourself. You want to build a business that runs on systems, runs on delegation. Certain parts of it are going to be automated. And in the next video, the facility freedom method, we're going to talk about how you can move from operator to owner and how you can lead through systems, delegation, clarity. What have I always said from module 1? It's about massive imperfect action. Always wins. You're going to make mistakes. Things are not going to go as planned. That's okay. Just hit the reset button if need be, recalibrate, and you've got this. So I'll look forward to connecting with you on the next one.